Hello everyone, we're continuing our series of shows, Kabbalah Fundamentals, and our topic for today is Perception of Reality. With us in the studio is Dr. Michael Laitman. Hello. And let's begin with examining what is reality altogether, and how is it related to us people. Does reality exist outside of the person? There are several theories. For example, the theory of relativity says that perception is relative depending on the place of the observer and the speed at which he's moving. Before that, Newton said that the world exists, regardless of man, of humanity, whether it exists or not. The world always existed and will exist without man. Quantum physics says that the world is an illusion depending on the observer, meaning we create this world. And I'd like to ask, what does the wisdom of Kabbalah say about the reality that we perceive? The wisdom of Kabbalah says that the only thing that exists is man with his perception, and he perceives only that which exists inside of him, meaning that the world is inside of me. Outside of me, there's no world. I feel myself. All the changes that happen inside of me seem as changes in the world outside of me, meaning as if project from myself outwards of my inner sensations, impressions, emotions, etc., outwards, and it's depicted in me, portrayed as the picture of the world, meaning simply the world is my inner state. There's this article by Bala Sulam from the foreword to the book of Zohar, if you can explain. We see a wide world before us, wondrously filled, but in fact, we see all that only in our own interior. In other words, there's a sort of photographic machine in our hindbrain which portrays everything that appears to us and nothing outside of us. Right? Meaning, I don't see anything outside of myself. Everything that I see it in my own brain. And in it are projected all of these pictures of as if reality that appears before me. But actually, it's none else but the projection of my changing desires, thoughts, emotions, experiences, and that I feel as the picture of the world. Meaning, were I not to see this picture of the world in the form of a big, broad world with many planets and people, flowers, animals, etc., then inside of myself I would have felt it in such a micro dosage that I wouldn't have been able to develop. But this way, everything that exists in me is magnified by billions of times and is unfolded around me. Meaning the world is an unfolding of my own self. Would it be correct to say that this is how the human brain works? It gets information in the form of waves, turning them afterwards into particles, and what we see around us is the material world, but actually it's all waves. Well, of course you can say that it's waves, that it's not even particles, but actually waves also, they practically don't exist. As the wisdom of Kabbalah says, there's only desire and the light that fulfills that desire. And so the light and its fulfillment, out of that consist all the pictures of our world, on all levels, in all of its components. And that's how we live. So we can draw a conclusion that A, there's no reality outside of the person as Kabbalah says, B, reality has no form of its own, and C, that man himself creates reality, like quantum physics says, right? And each of us makes his own reality. Each of us, I don't know, because I don't see anyone besides myself. Even if I see you and other people here in the studio and in the world, etc., around us, it's all a projection of myself. Well, that's beautiful, of course, but how's that all related to me, to my life? Well, if we come a bit out of our egoistic self and rise a bit above ourselves, we start feeling that the world, our worldview, our perception of the world is made exactly that way. So by changing myself, I changed the world around me, which is a result of my inner changes, my inner states. It in and of itself doesn't change. What does it mean that I, in relation to you, do not exist? I mean, I exist here, now, I'm sitting here. You see me, right? You now feel yourself as existing in a certain material membrane. It is the composition of your inner qualities that depict your state to you this way. You said that desire is the basis of nature, as we study in the wisdom of Kabbalah. Right, there's just one substance called desire. And we're made that way, that we see outside of ourselves desires on the still, vegetative, animate, and human level. And as a result, we see the still nature, vegetative, people, etc. Right, but it's all because this is how we're built. Meaning, were we built differently, we would have seen a completely different picture of the world. Right? And it depends on our desires. Meaning, were we on lower desires, we would have seen ourselves as running after mammoths, chasing mammoths, etc. Meaning it all depends on the evolution of our desires. And animals, how many levels of desires do they have? They work according to the same system as we do. Meaning these are our desires, the same as our desires, only on lower levels. But animals don't have desires that are on the human level, but still they feel people. So here, again, it depends on how do we talk about them, that they have sensations of their own, that they exist, or they exist only in our imagination. So Kabbalah says that the only thing that exists is in relation to man, and also that which exists in relation to man exists only in relation to himself. Besides himself, there's nothing. Everything else is what exists inside of him, and that which he sees outside of himself. Okay, suppose, yes, this is what a Kabbalist feels, he reached this level. Kabbalists, they gradually reveal this reality that we're talking about now, and they write about it, describe it, and the rest of the people, they don't feel it because they don't attain it. Meaning the entire development of man, with the help of the wisdom of Kabbalah, brings him to a state where he starts seeing the true reality, where nothing exists besides himself existing in the general white light. So it's not that someone decided or someone's better or someone's worse. There's simply evolution. There's a program governed by nature, and there's simply people who start attaining this reality and explaining that there's nothing outside of us a few thousands of years ago, and those who are still in the process and will attain it in 1,000 years, something like that. Yeah? It means that there's such desires in a person that have already achieved the state of their correction and the correct revelation of reality inside oneself, and such desires that have not yet been revealed have not yet achieved such correct perception of reality. And therefore they're depicted to a person in the form of external people that still don't understand, disagree with it, etc. And as I understand, these desires work according to two principles. The one is preserving its form, current form, and the second principle is connecting to yourself, something beneficial, etc. Yes, any desire is initially egoistic, meaning wishing to preserve itself and to bring closer to itself whatever it considers as beneficial. And thus, we can say that the wisdom of Kabbalah says that our entire life is the search for fulfillment. Right, meaning in us there is a desire, and we're searching for fulfillments. And where are these fulfillments? Because we're not really fulfilled. We are fulfilled. We're being fulfilled in the form of intellect, impressions, changes, until our impressions and changes bring us to a state where we will start seeing this true reality where nothing exists besides our desire, in which all of these fluctuations take place. And we will work only on expanding this desire as much as possible, this way feeling in it a complete and whole fulfillment, called the world of endlessness. In the book of Zohar it says that all the worlds exist inside of man. It says that all the worlds upper and lower are included in man, and also the whole of reality within those worlds is only for man, and everything lives and evolves only thanks to man. This was said 2,000 years ago. Right, it's all for one man, because nothing else was created besides Adam. And Adam is called that system. And all of us, it seems to us that we're many, but we're actually his parts. And what are the upper-lower worlds? The worlds is what seems to us in our incomplete yet perception of reality, that we reveal it in portions. In the measure of our equivalence of form, similarity with the upper governance, higher quality of bestowal. So the upper world are future states and the lower world are past states. Right, exactly. Also, about the connection between desire and perception, in the Babylonian Talmud that was written in the 3rd century, it says that anyone who blames others does so because of their own flaws. How can we explain that? That we all perceive reality not the way it really is, but in the measure of our kli, our attainment, our vessel of reception, and thus, the more it's corrected or not corrected, in that measure we partially feel the true reality, and partially false reality. Just like now, suppose I have glasses. So, of course, I feel more than I would feel without my glasses, but still, it's not an ideal perception of my vision. So, if I see negative phenomena in the world, I need to say that it's all inside of me, due to your still corrupted instrument of perception, of course. But suppose I talk to my friends, they also see these negative things, we talk about it, so how is that? They also see the same? Of course. And there are those that see the opposite, that which seems to you as negative, they see as positive, etc. It all speaks of the still uncorrectedness of your perception. So, it's possible to achieve a certain degree of attainment in your development where you look at the world and you say, it's pink, there's nothing negative. Actually, yes, truly so. Because it all depends only on our sensory organ. If we correct it to the measure where it becomes similar to the light and love, then practically there's no limitation to our perception, and we feel nothing as flawed or corrupted in our perception. And so, from what I understand, in order to achieve this kind of state, it's necessary to observe the one law of creation, which is equivalence of form. Meaning, I need to become similar to that nature, that initial reason that has created me. The one that you're actually in. But how to find out what is that nature that I exist in? And thus we were given a group, seemingly people, with whom I need to interact, where I consider myself and them as one whole. This way, I achieve focus. It's suppose like if I have two lines or images, I increase the sharpness and turn it into one. So Kabbalah says that nature is altruistic. We, the created beings, are egoistic. We have an egocentric way of thinking, and we need to bring ourselves into equivalence of form with that nature. Yeah. Well, we understand what altruism is, but we don't really see altruism in nature. Because animals eat each other up. You see, ego, it's the same matter. It's egoistic too, right? Yeah, but Kabbalah, when it reveals to man the method of his correction, it actually becomes the method which educates man, and it explains to him how he needs to change. And according to how he changes himself, he will see a corrected world. That's how it works. Meaning, I really need to understand that in my field of view, I have like this double image of the world, and I need to combine them, these two into one. It's where I combine myself, merge myself with others into a single object, into one. Then I correct myself and see that the world's corrected. So, let's take the nature of the Creator, the reason that made us, suppose, and we need to become like Him, right? And nature has the quality of absolute bestowal. So, He created us on purpose, the opposite of Him, in order for us, from that opposite state, to be able to attain Him, His true state. And then, we, between ourselves, then man will merge in himself the completely negative and completely positive qualities, and he will be able to rise to the next degree of the sensation of the world. So it's pretty clear, according to the law of equivalence of form, etc. Prior to that, we're given a society, there are a few more billions of people walking around me, and all that I need to do is to work altruistically towards them. And then I will be able to equalize myself with that higher being. Not being, there's no higher being, God forbid. There's no higher being. Upper quality. The quality of development, bestowal, love. So it's a kind of law, force. It's the force of emanation, the force of development, the force of bestowal, the force of positive influence. So, like there's gravity, suppose, that works on all of us, whether we want it or not. In our nature, there's no such force like we're talking about. The spiritual nature is when I want only for the sake of someone else, for their complete benefit, regardless of myself, where I disconnect from myself. That's called the state of tzimtzum, the restriction, a restriction over my desire. And when I completely want to give everything to the other for their benefit, regardless of what I get in return, without getting anything in return, that means that I am performing a spiritual action. Oh, this is all clear. The only thing is how to become that altruist. I'm not talking about how to do it in practice. We'll talk about that on our future shows, the principles, etc. We say, I need to become like Him, similar to Him. He is the bestower. Around me, there are people. For this, we have our world. But what can I give them? I have nothing to give. You don't need to give them anything. You have nothing to give, and they have nothing to receive. We need to only direct our desires. If I direct all of my desires towards others, by that, I become a conduit through which passes the upper abundance, the light, to those that I orient myself towards. But my orientation towards them needs to be completely without anything in return for myself. So we're talking about an intention, not about any kind of action. Right. It's like right now I'm thinking on all levels about myself, how to improve my situation. I'm not even thinking about it. It happens automatically. The same way a person will care for others. Yes. Then he will be considered in the spiritual world, in a spiritual action, and then he sees the entire world completely differently. So, in conclusion, it's beneficial to feel the world that's outside of us. I wrote down a few things. The first benefit is that there's the ability to reveal your uncorrected qualities. Of course, gradually I'll reveal in myself more and more uncorrected qualities. Meaning, were I to exist by myself and all of these uncorrected qualities would have been inside of me, I couldn't have corrected them. But this way, I look at the world, everyone's bad, I'm good, that's how I see everything. And this way, in a few thousands of years, a person starts understanding that maybe it's inside of me. Well, someone earlier started feeling it 2,000 years ago, and someone will feel it in 2,000 years. Yeah? Well, no. Someone 2,000 years ago, or I today, because we're talking about the perception of the world. So it's the same me, only dispersed into billions of pieces, scattered into millions of pieces, and thus it seems to me that there are billions of people from generation to generation, meaning different qualities, different states mix here, and I go through all of these different changes. And you can say, I go through these changes. Doesn't matter. Yeah, it's interesting. You can make a movie about it, how I'm scattered into these many different parts throughout thousands of years. Well, to what measure is it possible to depict it to yourself in this Hollywood style is a question, but this is really how it is. What I want to say is that this Adam, the best thing is to talk about Adam. His initial desires are the lightest, the least corrupted ones. It's like the first generation, and then they're corrected, and the next generation, and the next. It's all the same essence, the same soul, the same form. It's that one desire that's divided into many, many different layers, sectors, etc. Well, we'll talk about it separately, about the incarnation of souls. Now, so the first thing is there's me and society, so I have the ability to reveal my corrupted desires in society. The second is the ability to examine yourself in relation to your surroundings. Exactly, only this way. Meaning I always test my attitude towards them. Yes, the measure in which I relate to them beneficially to their benefit, rising above my own benefit for their sake. That is the work of the Kabbalist. And it's just like parents with their children. Meaning, I can get mad as if, put pressure on my students, etc. But it's all done in order for them to change. And the third benefit from feeling the world outside of us is the ability to change under the influence of the environment. Meaning the world is made that way that there's me, there's my environment, and according to the Kabbalistic perception of reality, they exist in me, even though that I see them outside of me, but there's this quality that they can influence me. They can influence you because they as if exist outside of you, and you, by your inner changes, can influence them in such a way that they will change and influence you for the better. But still, until the complete correction, this is the picture that will be depicted to you. So as long as I live in this biological body, as long as this is the picture that you're shown, that I live in a biological body, yes, precisely in that way, do you need to behave, meaning to interact with your environment as though they exist in truth, and precisely in the right interaction with them, you correct your picture of the world. Well, this is a very interesting theme, but it's difficult to understand it. It's attained out of practice, and it's very hard to communicate it verbally. Well, maybe over time it will be possible to make some movies with special effects or something. It's possible, of course, but I don't know. But yeah, very possible that it can bring people closer. Try Kabbalah, and this written in the source text says that the reality that Kabbalists are describing is above time, space, and motion. Where does it exist? Time, space, and motion are actually parameters of our world that is considered the fictitious world, or called the fictitious world. These are parameters that appear in us as a result of our uncorrected egoistic desires. If we correct these desires of ours and raise them to the degree of bestowal of altruistic actions, then they lose these qualities of theirs, qualities in which time slows down to the degree of our world, all of a sudden appears some kind of a physical space, etc. All of these time, space, and motion depend only on our egoistic desire. Once we come out of the ego, we rise to a different realm, so-called spiritual. Then there these parameters do not exist. Their time is the change of our desires, a change in our desires from smaller to greater altruism. Space and motion is the motion from lower, weaker qualities of bestowal to stronger qualities of bestowal. And this is what we exist in. So, to understand the scheme, how do we get information? Meaning, there is something outside of us, some kind of waves. They pass through our five senses. Then they're processed by the brain. And I have, like Bala Sulam writes, a kind of lens that, like on a screen, projects this reality that I see as matter, as particles. But actually, these are waves that enter me, and I see them as particles. Even in quantum physics, we see such experiments, that if a person looks at these waves, he nonetheless sees them as particles. And if they're not observed, they act as waves. Right, the corpuscular theory of light. So Kabbalists knew this a few thousands of years ago. Of course, that it's both waves and particles at the same time, yes. Because if we're dealing with the reception of light, then we measure it in quants. And if we're talking about the general fulfillment, then we measure it in waves, qualities. Just to add that when the mind processes information, behind it stands our desire to receive, which actually is, it actually governs and controls. Right, that's the created being, and since our desire to receive is egoistic, turns out that our mind serves our desire. And naturally, it's also egoistic. And what kind of additional organ does a Kabbalist have, depending on the level that he's on? A Kabbalist is actually a person with the same desire, only that he has desires with which he can already work to the benefit of others in bestowal, serving him in order to connect more and more such desires and directing them toward the Creator. And thus, in this regard, he acts like the Creator. In bestowal, he is the Creator's conduit. What picture does he see? I mean, he lives in this body, he gets information that passes through the mind, he has a desire to receive. He has an additional picture. Next to the desire to receive, he has another desire? Yes. In the measure to which he has a desire to bestow, to that extent he already sees the picture of the higher world. So he sees two pictures, that of this world and another one. Of course. What, doesn't he live in this world? Doesn't he walk on the street? This new picture, it dresses on the... what does he see? Additional elements in this reality? Yeah. Some objects? Yeah. Only not our objects, not matter, but forces. So he sees additional forces of what? Of interaction between people, but the true interactions between desires, seemingly between people, because for him people aren't people. These are materialized desires. And what does it give him? It gives him the opportunity to instill his corrections into humanity, thus bringing humanity closer to the full revelation of the Creator, where the quality of bestowal and love and connection, that this quality reigns over the ego and all people will be able to connect in it. I'm just trying to grab hold of something. What does it give? It gives the attainment of the higher eternal reality, unlimited, complete, endless, and this way fulfills a person's desire with complete and full fulfillment. And when complete and full fulfillment appears in a person, there's nothing further to talk about. So this picture gives complete fulfillment. Yes. Okay, so when a person's fulfilled, there's nothing to say. True. And that's the purpose of creation, the purpose of our correction, the purpose of studying Kabbalah, the purpose of our existence. Okay, thank you very much for this show, lesson about perception of reality, and next time We'll talk about the development of creation, what happened before the Big Bang, how Kabbalah describes the development of our desires, which is the basis of the whole of creation. Thank you very much. All the best.